Hey everyone, it's Kenji López-Alt again. I'm at home. It's late, so everyone's asleep, but I'm going to make some pizza tomorrow, so tonight I'm making some no-knead dough. Here we go. So, we rearranged our kitchen recently, and I have no idea where we put our scale or some of our measuring cups, so I'm going to kind of eyeball all this. It's a pretty forgiving recipe, so you don't really have to worry about it too much. But I know that this thing is about 2 cups of flour, which is about 280 grams of flour. And what you're looking for is the right ratio of flour to water. So with this recipe, I go at about 60 to 65% hydration. That is for every 100 grams of flour, you use 60 to 65 grams of water. So this is 280 grams of water, so I think it's around 170 milliliters, 170 grams of water, which is, let's see. That's a little more than we need, but I'll pour it in, and first some salt. Aiming for about 2.5 to 3% salt by weight for this dough. Again, I'm just eyeballing it. Grab some yeast. Oh, yeast, where are you? Sorry, we rearranged everything. There we go. Instant yeast is what I'm using. Really, you can use whatever. These types of no-knead recipes, no-knead dough recipes, are very, very forgiving as far as the amount of yeast. They kind of almost self-regulate. So I aim for like around 0.5% by weight of the flour, but just a little bit. Doesn't really matter too much. So, clean hands. Alright, let me mix up that salt, some yeast, some flour. I'm going to do a little bit of olive oil in this one. I don't always add olive oil to my pizza doughs. It makes them brown a little bit faster and also makes them a little more sort of tender and a looser crumb structure, which is, not always desirable, but just mixing it up. Alright, so I'm going to go with not all this water because that was around 190 milliliters, I think. So I'm going with about that much to start, and we'll see where that gets us. So with these no-knead doughs, essentially what happens is you want to get it just to the point where there's no real dry flour remaining. And then over the course of the night, what happens is there are enzymes in the flour that break down the proteins into shorter and shorter pieces, which are then easier to align. So when you mix flour and water together, it creates a sort of protein web called gluten, and the enzymes help that form more easily. So when you do a no-knead dough like this, the enzymes have a long time to work, and it gets to the point where just the action of the yeast bubbling and creating action within the dough, is sort of like a kneading on a microscopic scale, to the point that you don't actually have to really knead it at all. All you have to do is combine it just like this, cover it, and then tomorrow we'll come back and I'll show you where it is. Cover it with plastic, bowl about like at least 6 to 8 times the volume of this, because this is going to rise like crazy overnight. Cover it, leave it on the counter, and might as well just do that. Nice and tight. There you go. So we'll cover it, leave it on the counter, room temp, overnight, and tomorrow we'll come back and we'll see where we are. Quickly, just to clean our hands off. This is a little trick I learned. Oh, I don't even remember from whom. Stella? Maybe it was Brave Tart. Anyhow, dry flour helps you get wet dough off of your hands. All right. I'll see you guys tomorrow, right? Actually, I'll see you guys tomorrow. All right, there, I'm back. You'll notice I did not change my shirt today. I will do it later, though, because it's kind of gross, huh? Anyhow, we're back. This is the next day. I got my dough here again. Now, I made a mistake, and I did one thing without the camera on, and that was to give it a couple of turns earlier today, about an hour ago. But the way you do that is basically you reach around the edges of it, pull up the top, just kind of fold it over itself like that a few times. And that's what I did earlier. And then it rose back out into the shape. And the reason you do that is you kind of want to introduce any sort of pockets of yeast. You sort of want to homogenize it. Introduce the yeast to new food so that I can work a little better. But you'll see how nice and stretchy this dough has become overnight. It's like real pizza dough, you know. So what I'm gonna do now, you can use this dough for any kind of pizza. You can make like a New York style pizza out of it, stretch it yourself. You can make a pan pizza. What we're gonna do today is we're gonna make these. Well, these pan pizzas in cast iron pans. I got 2 cast iron pans here, different sizes. I'm just gonna eyeball it again. I'm not positive this is enough dough to fill up both of them, but we'll see. Little flour on the board, just a tiny bit. Get a knife, let's see. That's probably 1 and 2, right? There you go. And so when you're balling your dough, what I do is I kind of take it like this, and I tuck it all underneath as I kind of rotate it around, and I kind of pinch it here with my thumb. And so what that does is it gives you a nice, smooth top, and then you pinch it all together at the bottom like that. And then what you can do is put it on your board like this. You don't want too much flour because you actually want it to stick just a little bit. Loose hand, go like that, and that'll kind of create a nice little seal at the bottom. See? Easy. Got some olive oil here. Plenty of olive oil in these pans. I'm also going to get some sauce going, so let me heat up some olive oil in this pan over here. You don't have to cook your sauce. You can just use plain old good quality crushed tomatoes with some salt, or whole peeled tomatoes that you crush yourself with some salt. For this style of pizza, I like making a kind of lightly flavored sauce. All right, so there's that guy. Plop. And pinch the bottom. There we go. All right, right into here. All right, now these guys I'm gonna turn around a little bit, get them all nice and coated with olive oil all over. And then I'm gonna wash my hands. That little thing here, this little thing is from one of these Japanese candy. It's like powder that it's made for kids, and it's this like powder that you pour into these little trays in this well, and it turns into different kinds of shapes. That one's it's called Pop and Cookin', I think. Pop and Cook. This one is a sushi set, so you make your own little. One of the powders turns into candy that looks like rice. One of the powders turns into candy that looks like tuna. One of them turns into candy that looks like an egg. And then the coolest part of that is that there's one that actually has like real, like legit spherification, like sodium alginate spherification. You make these little candies that look like salmon eggs, but are, I don't know, some kind of orange flavored or something. But you drop them in with a little dropper, and it's made for kids. They're really cool. It actually works. All right. Clean this up here. So for my sauce, I'm going, well, this basil I'll use later. It's seen better days, but you know, whatever. Basil in the time of coronavirus. Save the stems for the sauce. Throw the leaves in here for the pizzas later. Got the stems. Grab a little garlic. How many cloves? Smash, 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 smash. Get the papers off. I still don't know where my bench scraper went. Oops, paper stuck in there. You don't really have to do a too fine too perfect a job on this garlic. Just a very kind of rough chop. If you get any papers stuck in there, pull them out. All right, there's our garlic. It's gonna go right into the oil here. Oops, which is too hot. It's not gonna go into that oil. That oil is smoking, which we don't want. What did I do there? All right. Whoops. Yeah, I probably shouldn't do that. That's a good way to ruin your pan. Oops, sorry, I had to cut away for a second because my daughter talked there. But anyhow, don't do that with your pan. That was a dumb thing for me to do. Pressure of the video. All right, meanwhile, I'm gonna go here. Pepper flakes. We want pepper flakes and oregano. Oregano. What's that? Oregano. Woo! Oops. All right, let's try this again. Olive oil. And garlic. Oh, I had some mac and cheese left over on it. Not too hot. Pepper flakes. Some dried oregano. Oregano is one of those herbs that actually works really well dried. Generally, like herbs that are hardier leaves, like oregano, marjoram, thyme, sage, those tend to do pretty well when they're dried. Rosemary, it's the herbs like parsley, basil, chives, like those really more delicate ones that just don't do well dried. And it's because those hardier herbs, their volatiles are actually less volatile. Their aromas are less volatile, so they don't. And it's because they grow in hotter climates, so they don't want all that stuff evaporating out of them. So generally, like hardier herbs, their flavors tend to stick as they dry better than more delicate herbs. So I would never use like dried parsley or basil or chervil or chives, but I would definitely would use, you know, oregano, thyme, marjoram, savory. I don't know, who uses savory? I don't know when you would use savory. Probably use it like twice in my life. You can go in with a hand blender. You can buy crushed tomatoes if you want. Oh, these are, oh, they're not the San Marzanos. This brand Cento also makes San Marzanos. This is just plain old Italian style. I don't know, I'm not as picky as most people are about their tomatoes. I usually get Cento DOP San Marzanos from Italy, or I get Glen, which are from the US, and consistently win like taste tests. Oh, this is a pastry cutter. This is what you use this to cut butter into flour when you're making pie dough and stuff like that. I think it's great for making like a rough textured tomato sauce like this. Just chops it right up. You can also, yeah, so you can go in here with a hand blender. You can also use crushed tomatoes. You could use a potato masher, or if you want really rough texture, you can put those tomatoes into a bowl and just squish them with your hands before you make them in your sauce, but this is pretty good. Just gonna let that cook down slightly. And what do we got? All right. We're gonna wrap these back up again. Oh, let me throw these basil stems in here. Oh, people were asking me, what are all these onions doing here? These onions are here because we were planning on making some French onion soup at some point, and you need a buttload of onions to do that. This, by the way, is lemon verbena. We grow it out in the yard, and we pick it and dry it, and then my daughter uses it to make tea because she likes to feel like a grown-up, and so she gets to have the lemon verbena tea. We have the grown-up tea, and everyone's happy. Lemon verbena is also just delicious. It's like one of my favorite herbs. In Spanish, so in Colombia, they drink a lot of agua de mata, which is like herbal teas. My wife is Colombian again. One of the most popular herbs there is lemon verbena, which they call citron. It's got the aroma of lemon, but not the tartness. There you go, nice and wrapped. We're gonna leave these again out at room temperature. And what's gonna happen is the dough's almost gonna kind of let it like stretch itself out. It'll relax and relax and relax, and it'll start going shh. And then, hopefully by the end we'll have very little actual work to do to get it to stretch into place. But we'll leave that, until it's relaxed, an hour or so, maybe a couple hours. I'll do the dishes. All right, sauce simmering away. Season with some salt. People ask me if I don't know if I always use that much salt. I don't know. I was trained in restaurants, and we use a lot of salt in restaurants, and I have I'm the chef partner at a beer hall, and we want our customers to drink beer, so we make the food nice and salty. I would call it properly seasoned. I would say most people under-season their food, and this is properly seasoned, but that's just kind of a arrogant chef's way of looking at it. Salt it to whatever level you like it. I like it with plenty of salt. All right, that is good to go. All right, I will see you guys back, I don't know, a couple hours when this pizza is ready to go. All right, bye-bye. All right, I think we're back for, there'll probably be one more cut in the middle of this, but we're back now. We're about to finish stretching out and topping that pizza dough. So you can see it's been like almost 2 hours. Oh, you know what? I also looked up the recipe I have for this online, which is on Serious Eats. It's called Foolproof No Knead Pan Pizza, something like that. The recipe I used on Serious Eats is a little different from the one I kind of did that I did in this video. It has a little bit more water in it. That one is about 68% hydration. This one I think is 60 to 65%. Anyhow, all it does is goes to show you that it's a very forgiving recipe. It doesn't really matter too much how precise you are, as long as you get the sort of general idea right. All right, so what I'm gonna do now, you can see the dough is nice and relaxed. It's started to stretch out already. I'm gonna finish getting it around to the edges of the pans here. And if you see bubbles like that, just give them a pop, otherwise they'll kind of puff up and burn. And the one thing you want to do is make sure that there's no air trapped underneath the dough, because that'll prevent the bottom from crisping. And you really want it to get nice and crisp. Almost like ends up kind of frying in olive oil as it bakes. There you go. That's what you're looking for. So all the way around to every corner, all the way around the edges like that. This one, do the same thing. Oh, there's a nice big bubble right there. I think the one that's posted on Serious Eats also has a little bit less olive oil. I don't know why. I think it's because people get nervous about using so much oil, but it's the good fat, right? Good fat. Anyhow. All right, there we go. Out to the edges. Let's make sure there's no air trapped underneath. So you want to kind of lift it up, make sure that there's no air, and slide it down slowly. I've preheated my oven to 550 degrees, which is as hot as it goes. And I put the rack kind of close to on the lowest rack, which is what you want to do because you really want that bottom to kind of fry and heat up really nicely. All right. Now with a lot of pizzas, you know, like a New York style pizza or a Neapolitan style pizza, you go pretty sparing on the sauce and the toppings and stuff. With this style of kind of deeper pan pizza, you can be a little more generous. This is still way too much sauce for all the pizzas, so we'll figure out something to do with it. Got your spoon. Oh, hi dog. All right. Try not to get too many of those basil stems. All right. Pick them out if you get them. And you can top it any way you like. You can leave a border around it if you want. I think for this style of pizza, I kind of like having the sauce go all the way to the edges, and especially the cheese. You know, it's kind of like if you ever had Detroit style pizza, which I also have a recipe up for on Serious Eats, but Detroit style pizza is like really has that nice cheese crust. It kind of blackens and gets crispy. I'm going to do a little bit of that on this one, although I don't have the right type of cheese for it. In fact, I don't have the right type of cheese at all. Like normally what I would do is I would get a block of full fat aged mozzarella, not the fresh mozzarella. This type of pizza, you don't want to use fresh mozzarella because it's just too wet. But today I couldn't find that at the supermarket the other day because things are slim pickings these days. So all I could get was this stuff. Finely shredded, low moisture, part skimmed cheese. We'll see how it turns out. Let's see what else we got. We got some chorizo, and I think we have some Parmesan crusts. We got some. Oh, you know what? Let's try some string cheese instead of the. Well, I'll do one with string cheese and one with the pre-shredded stuff. And here's some Parmesan. The real problem with the pre-shredded stuff is, first of all, that it's always low fat, which is not ideal for this type of pizza. But it's also that it has cellulose to prevent it from sticking, from clumping, and that can affect the way it melts, but we'll see what happens. All right, so we go all the way up to the edges here. We want that cheese to kind of melt into the edges and really crisp up around the edge of that pan. That, and then on this guy, let's see if this works. Oop. All right. So string cheese is mozzarella. I think it's higher fat than the pre-shredded stuff. It definitely doesn't have the cellulose, so maybe this will work better. Oops, I hear my daughter calling. Hang on a second. All right, and back. So I got that mozzarella done. I got my daughter's issue taken care of. I'm just gonna cut this into chunks. I don't see why this wouldn't work, right? It's cheese is cheese. I've been on this kind of cheese and carb tear on these videos recently. I don't always eat like this. It just seems like this is the kind of stuff that's most conducive to YouTube videos, so I just do it. All right. You know what I mean? How do you feel about that? You mind all this cheese and carbs? All right. Cheese up to the edges. And we got this, we'll do a little bit of Parmesan on there too. And this guy. And we got that basil. We'll do some of it first so that it gets the aroma on there, and then some of it we'll add fresh at the end as well. Traditionally with like a Neapolitan style pizza, you put the basil on at the beginning, but these pizzas bake significantly longer than a real traditional Neapolitan pizza does, so I like to save some of that basil as well for the end so that you get some of that fresh basil flavor. Here's chorizo. Enough. Which guy should we go on here? Let's do on this one, so we can really load it up. go. A little sprinkle of salt on both of these. I'm not going to add any extra olive oil because they both had there's a lot of oil in that pan already. And here we go, into the oven. So 550 degrees, real hot. Those are going to take about 10 to 12 minutes or so. All right, back for what has got to be the last time. We're going to go check on the pizzas. It's been about 10, 12 minutes or so. I don't know exactly how long it's been, but I'm going to leave that there because the pizza's going to land there. And let me get a little spatula. Don't. I'll just use a knife. All right. Whew, there we go. Looking good. Make sure that they're. See how the bottoms are doing. Getting there. So, looks like the tops are done, but the bottoms are not quite there yet. So what I do then, if that happens, an easy way to fix that. We'll go straight to the stovetop. There's that tomato soup I made earlier. And we're just going to finish it on the stovetop so the bottom crisps up. I'm going to finish with that fresh basil. And we'll do a little more Parmesan. Let me see. All right. Let's check out how we're doing. You can see those nice crispy cheese crusts, huh? There we go. Starting to look golden. And it'll crisp up as it, when it's really hot, it won't be, the cheese crust will seem a little sort of limp, but as it cools just a little bit, it's going to start to crisp up. There we go. Now, it looks black, but that's actually what you're looking for with these cheese edges. They don't taste burnt. You're just going to have to trust me on that. They might look burnt, but they're not going to taste burnt. Look at that. Can you see that? Yeah. All right. Now, let's get this guy out of here. You're going to live here. Whoop. And you need another home here. You can live right here. Too much olive oil. Yeah, the string cheese guy actually came out looking pretty good. I'm glad that worked. I'll get in the edges here, so you don't want to leave any of that crust behind. There we go. That crust. All right, now let's get our pizza cutter, pizza wheel, and let's see what we got as far as texture goes. Ready? Grab the camera. Oh, people were asking me about my setup. I use a GoPro, and this is the GoPro app on the camera just so I can kind of see and make sure that everything's pointing in the right direction. Ooh, look at that pizza. All right. Whew. All right. You see that nice crumb structure, the nice bubbly, it's almost like focaccia, right? And in fact, this recipe It's pretty similar to my focaccia recipe as well, and you bake it in kind of the same way. And let's look at the undercarriage there. See how nice and crispy and kind of fried it gets? And then, of course, there's this bit, which is, that's the real stuff. This is what dreams are made of. Crispy cheese. It's way too hot for me to even take a bite of right now. Asbestos fingers, though, you know. You know what I'm gonna do for the other one? Grab a bit of this. Mike's Hot Honey, good stuff. Goes real well with cured meat on pizza. A little bit of spice and a little bit of, tiny bit of acid and you know, and some sweetness, of course. One of my favorite combinations, pickled jalapenos, pepperoni, and hot honey. I don't have any pickled jalapenos today. Actually, I probably do, I just didn't think about it. All right, let's get 4 slices on this one. And whew, look at that. Delicious, delicious pan pizza. This is kind of like what Pizza Hut used to be like before they went all, you know, I guess they were always corporate, but before they went like super corporate. All right, let's see if I can actually take a bite of this. This is gonna hurt. It's so good. Yeah. All right, I know what the dog's waiting for. Sit. Sit. Down. Wait. 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 Come on, here you go. One for you too. Come on, buddy. Here you go. Shabu. No, no, no. Back up. Back up. Here you go. All right. And now it's dinner time.